we're almost at the end of the tether here. So people, the sun is up already. It beat me, but not because I wasn't out. It was because the cloud was covering it, and then I realized, gosh, it's up. So I could have started 5 minutes ago. I was kind of tempted as well because the light was great, but I didn't know how long it would take for it to penetrate the cloud. So we're back on our typical lakeside walk here. Yesterday evening I was up at the cliffs, which are just above us here. We can't see them right now, with Father Donald. And the entire mountainside is getting small little bits of green. I really want to show it to you, maybe tomorrow or the day after. Hey, look at the sun disk. It's right in there in the
It's beautiful.
Right in there in the cloud. So you can make it out, right there. You can see that now in the center of the screen there. You can make out the circle, the sun disk, but it's very clouded, very covered. But it'll be coming out stronger. As the sun rises, the cloud will be weaker and we'll see more of it. So I don't know if you hear the second set of footsteps here. I'm with a person from near Toledo, Ohio. He's not old Nick, he's young Nick. You know, my dad would often use the term old Nick for the devil. See that little cave here? There's a guy living in there, Moshe, in the summertime. But he lives down here in the trees. So people, we're in Advent. In Advent. And all here is dried up, you see. Winter landscape. Although the spring has already started up here. We were up here at the foot of the cliffs yesterday evening. It was a different moment to be up there instead of at dawn or at sunrise. So do you want to know more about Nick? Nick has a lot of history. He's surprised I called him a young fellow, but because he thinks he's quite mature.
That's definitely not true. Good morning.
So Nick has quite the path, and he's done kind of a full circle of religious experience in his short little life.
That's so kind.
Look at this here, guys. Very Ohio kind of scene, right?
Yeah, that looks just like home. Yep.
With the palm trees.
Yes.
So we usually turn around here, Nick, and head back. This is the waterworks. Actually, there were two volunteers who wanted me, who were here before from England, Brian and Joy, and they were down here. They told me, they sent me a message yesterday. They were down here yesterday. They just came back from England there a week ago. How lucky they were. All the people who came in here in this time have been so lucky, because unfortunately things are closing down again. And then the possibility for coming in now is closed for the next couple of weeks. There were some people who actually arrived yesterday, the last ones. They had missed their flight for some reason. I don't know the technicalities, that came in with Father Roger's group, and they got in yesterday, but that was the end of it. Wow. So we're praying that that'll be resolved soon, that as the groups would just start coming back. It was really a pity that things got slowed down this way.
We were very blessed to arrive when we did.
Yeah, 2 or 3 days before, eh?
Like it was like one day before. Yeah.
Okay.
So we woke up on our first morning here to the news that they were shutting down the borders here. So it's pretty amazing.
Yes. So Nick, why don't you give us a thumbnail sketch of what you do? What do you do?
Sure. So my name is Nick de la Torre, and I am the president of an organization called Awaken Catholic. We actually, Awaken is, we're a media apostolate. We produce videos and music, and we just like to talk to people about Jesus and introduce them to the gospel. It's important to us to do that in a way that is grounded in real life. You know, a lot of times we can talk about faith in a way that makes it unreachable. It makes it feel to people that they're not good enough for it, or that they're not welcome in it. And the reality is that we all come from different sources of pain or wounds, experiences that make it easier or more difficult to receive the gospel in its fullness. And so we talk about the Lord and the life of faith in the context of what it really is like to be human. And I think that's really, really important. So that's why we called our organization Awaken. And so we produce media. We have a really awesome faith-based social media alternative. And you can look that up by just visiting theawakenapp.io. And it's just a community of people that are kind of tired of some of the toxic nature of some of the other social media platforms and want their social media experience to be something that edifies their faith life and grow in community that way as well. So that's kind of a bird's eye. And then my wife and I also make music. And you can learn more about our music at nickandalina.com. So yeah, snapshot.
Yeah, I'll try and put in those links as well. I'm not very technically competent. You know, I was born in the last millennium.
That's silly because you're holding a very fancy gimbal with your phone and you look very high tech right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can do copy and paste, you know.
Yeah.
But there's a whole lot of tricks to this whole the skill set that I can do a few things for sure, because at this for a year and a half now, so you start learning along the way and make a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, yeah.
And the people are patient with us, you know.
Well, you're live streaming every day from this incredible holy site at the Sea of Galilee. It's pretty advanced, Father.
Well, it's a unique opportunity. Not everybody gets to do it. Like when you're in Ohio, you can't do it, you know. So
you're absolutely right. I could try, and it wouldn't work.
So this is special. It's no doubt it's a huge gift, and I'm very blessed. And also, having met so many people in pilgrimage over the last 15 years, it's a lot of connections all over the world. People of different faith communities.
Yeah.
I mean, no faith as well, and just people who are traveling and visiting as tourists. So it's amazing the possibility to be connected with so many people and enjoy these blessings, you know.
Certainly, yeah, it's amazing.
So today's readings, people are first readings in Advent, you know, after yesterday's, of course. And today's readings it's a very, very beautiful message of hope. And it's actually touching Capernaum. Let's see if we can get Capernaum on the screen here. So we have the Mount of Beatitudes right over here, Nick. I'm going to zoom in here for our camera people because they can't squint with the thing focused away so far away. Right now the Mount of Beatitudes is, and I'll put it between these two plants. There we go. So it's between the two plants. And then on the right of the plant, the other plant, there's a piece of plastic, and just down below that is Capernaum. It's very hazy this morning, so we won't go further than that. So the gospel scene is in Capernaum, and we're right across the lake from Capernaum, you know.
I actually just visited Capernaum yesterday. Absolutely amazing.
What struck you most about Capernaum?
Well, I think standing in the synagogue, even though it's a 5th century synagogue built over top of the 1st century synagogue, we can still see pieces of that 1st century synagogue poking through. And there are moments in the gospel where we see Jesus preaching in that synagogue in Capernaum. And some of those instances are very important, especially to me in my journey. And just to stand there where Jesus stood, maybe a few feet above because of the second synagogue that was built, but to stand there where Jesus stood, preaching some of those important messages, it was very, very emotional. It was amazing.
So, Nick, You know, today's we just do another minute about the content of today's reading. So we just did the location of Capernaum, and we have Isaiah opening up his book, basically just in chapter 2, and he's talking about the swords being converted into plowshares and the spears into pruning hooks. So plows are for wheat and bread, and the spears are for the wine, you know, the grapes and the wine, and the great biblical presence of these elements to nourish and to gladden the heart of the human being. So they're very connected to the deep goodness of the Creator.
Yes.
And then it's a message of salvation, because it's a mission of hope for all people, for the Gentiles. The word Gentiles is, just to put it in context, is the other part of the equation when we say the chosen people. So they're chosen, they're just another people. The word gens in Latin means like a tribe or a people. And so they're also the chosen people. So they're also a gens in a way, but they're chosen, so they're different, they're special, they have a special mission. And the Gentiles are, we're all Gentiles, right?
Yes.
And then when we have the gospel, we have a centurion, a Roman centurion. And Jesus is almost overwhelmed by the faith of this pagan. And we still use the words that he used in one of the highest moments of the Mass, of the Eucharistic celebration. Lord, I am not worthy that you should come into my life.
Yeah.
And so we have this universal message today in the readings, that the gift of salvation is for all God's, those created in his image and likeness.
Yeah.
And it's very encouraging and beautiful.
I love that reminder of for humility, right? Like, kind of connecting to my personal mission. You know, nobody deserves salvation. Nobody deserves the grace of God. But in all of our wounds, in all of our sin, in all of our broken relationships, God just wants to invade all of that once we allow him to. And he wants to just fill us.
Invade sounds like a bit aggressive.
Well, he's an aggressive but also perfect gentlemanly lover. He wants to just, I can experience, I share in my own experience that the moment I opened the door, because he was knocking for years, the moment I opened the door, his love and his mercy just filled the space of my heart and my soul. And it was a welcome invasion that just completely turned my life upside down in the best way possible. And he just, you know, I think the idea of us dying to the self to allow Christ to live in us is also a bit aggressive, right? But it's something that we need to do, because in my own experience, the old Nick was no good, no bueno. And I really appreciate the lengths that the Lord helped me to go to die to my previous self, so that he could invade my heart and just pour his love out on me. And so that humility in the reading that we were talking about, like, none of us are worthy that he should enter under our roofs, but only say the word and my soul shall be healed. That's a powerful idea, that God's word is that powerful, right? Like, God's word brought everything into creation. God's word became flesh.
Hey, just a second.
Yeah.
We got to see this here. We got a very special spot here.
Oh, wow.
There we got our purple heron perched there. You see our purple heron, people?
That's so beautiful.
And if God gives this precious moment to a purple heron, imagine to somebody created in his image and likeness, even if he's a Gentile, even if the person is very lost and very far away, very broken, very hurt, very misbehaved, maybe very hurtful to others. And yet that person is much more than a purple heron. Look at the birds of the air, and he provides for them. And that's kind of the message of Isaiah today, you know, this message of hope, of joy, of expectation that the Lord will come for the Gentiles.
Yes.
We're on this path, and there's a perspective at the end of this road, that in the future there's going to be a fullness of salvation, and Isaiah's 6 centuries before Christ. So it's an amazing promise. And then the experience then that a Roman, who's an occupation power representative at an official level, this guy, can press on the people, can crush them with his military power, but the sword is turning into a plow and the spear into a pruning hook. So Nick, tell us a couple of words about yourself. What path did you do? Why did you start Awaken?
Well, I was a cradle Catholic, which means I grew up as a Catholic, but I attended Catholic school, and I really there was a lot of brokenness in my family. My parents got a divorce very early on.
How old were you?
I was in the summer after my 4th grade.
Did you have siblings?
I do. I have 2 younger siblings.
Uh-huh.
And there were just a lot of wounds there in the family life, custody battles that did not end until they were irrelevant because I became 18 as an adult. Very early addiction to pornography, just a lot of darkness, and my broken capacity to have human relationships with women as a result of that addiction. So after high school, I ended up leaving the church and started attending non-denominational services, and they served a purpose in my journey that was really important, and that would come a little later. I ended up segueing into the New Age movement a bit.
What does that mean?
To me, my experience of it was that it was this pursuit of connection to something higher in the universe, but then also becoming greater in the sense that in the New Age movement there's this encouragement or this idea that we are the gods. We have the power to manifest whatever we want to manifest. But ultimately, what drove me away from faith was that in the New Age church I was attending, they had
New Age church? New Age has church?
So I was attending a Unitarian Universalist church, which in that iteration was very New Age. And their gospel was essentially the law of attraction, that you can manifest anything into your life because you have the power and we are gods and whatever. And so in the bookstore for this church, the proposition was essentially, they had every major world religion on display and available for purchase. And essentially it was like a buffet line, and they were inviting everyone to invent their own theology, their own ideology about the way the universe works. And that proposition to me held no water, because if anything is true, you can't just invent your own truth. And that also then connected me to that idea that we have this document, this Bible, that we have so many divisions and splinters in our Christian family that are a source of a lot of pain to a lot of people. And we're all looking at the same book but coming up with totally different versions of what's true, and I just ultimately ended up deciding none of it was true. And
so you left faith, and
I did.
How would you define yourself at that point?
I was an agnostic in the sense that all of it was the result of a pursuit of something that I knew had to be true, which was that there was a higher power. But I was atheistic in the sense that, I had given up on any of it being possibly true. And so I was kind of on a borderline there. And eventually I joined the worship band at a non-denominational church, even though I didn't believe, because I was a terrible person and I loved being in the limelight. But in my time there, attending that church and helping lead worship, I was exposed to a lot of the sermons and a lot of the messaging, and over the course of months, God was chiseling away at my hardened heart, and I was reaching into some of the deepest, darkest moments of my life in that time frame, where I was really giving up on having any reason to live. When you lose sight of the Creator and the idea that you were created on purpose and for a purpose, and your life really stops having meaningful purpose, ultimately I was suicidal. And there were several times that, by the grace of God alone, I still woke up the next morning. And so God was chiseling away at my heart over the course of months attending this church, and I knew that if I did not respond to his chiseling and his knocking on the door, things were not going to end well, and I needed saving. And I didn't understand how to reconcile that with my intellectual concerns, but I knew I needed saving. So I opened myself up to God at that point, and I knew that I had to figure out the intellectual stuff eventually, but I let him penetrate my heart. And I remember that the first day that I did that at this church, I was weeping like a child. And then, having opened myself up to him, I discovered John Paul II's Theology of the Body, which, for my wounds and the things I had experienced in my life, were so healing and so amazing. And I've dedicated my life to spreading the messages of Theology of the Body, because I know in this world that people are hurting, and so much of it has to do with brokenness in the family, sexual sin, and the Theology of the Body is so amazing and powerful for that. So awaken. At that point, I had awakened to all of the grace that God had been filling me with for years, going into childhood, in my baptism, in my communion and confirmation. And I woke up, and through Awaken, I wanted to bring that awakening to others.
Awesome, Nick. Awesome. And look, we're looking right here at the background is Capernaum, where this Roman centurion came. So the Gentiles are not just the Roman centurion. We're all a little bit the Gentiles, and here we have a beautiful testimony. Nick, thank you so much for sharing this so personal story. Yeah. It's really, I'm going to turn around this way here so we get you in the sunlight here better. And we see the radiant Nick. And Nick, God bless you, and thank you for sharing all of this. And we've gone way over time, but people forgive me for this because I didn't want to interrupt this beautiful sharing this morning. And here at the Sea of Galilee, how many stories people shared with Jesus, and they received that gift. And may you all be blessed today. We're living in a time of hope. This is Advent, especially, expresses hope, the hope in the coming of salvation today. So, Nick, we do a small little selfie moment here to thank everybody. God bless you for being here. See you later, alligators. Okay.